Sports Talk with Playeragent3. My next guest name rings bells on the high school circuit, the college circuit, and the NBA circuit, as well as the European market. My brother, Mr. Brian Clifton.
What's up?
What's good with you?
What's up, yeah? Good to be here.
Long time coming, man. I appreciate it.
For sure.
Let's dive right into it, man. Who is Brian Clifton as a person?
It depends on who you ask, honestly. I think you could get a myriad of responses depending on exactly who you do talk to. I'm a regular cat. I've always taken great pride in that. If anybody that follows me on Twitter at TruthDon'tCareB on Twitter, I feel very fortunate, very blessed to be in the position that I'm in now, and the positions that I've been in the past, because I've had people who really, really cared about me as an individual, who knew that I had work ethic and things of that nature, but just cared about me as a person and gave me the right advice and great counsel and stuff like that. And it just so happened that right place at right time, I was around guys that were really, really, really accomplished and connected in a lot of areas, and that kind of shaped me as a person and as an individual. I'm originally from Louisburg, North Carolina. I'm a country boy to my heart still to this day. I was fortunate enough that, and one of the many connections that you and I have was Robinson. I actually met somebody at random yesterday at work, and they were familiar with Coach and his family. So I was in a position that he was probably one of the only people on the planet that could have talked my mom out of sending me back to Louisburg High School and got me over to what's known now as St. David's. So it's a private school education, country boy upbringing, just that really focused me on and made me, I guess, who I am or aspire to be. So I guess, who I am as a person is just that. I'm a regular dude who's been extremely fortunate, who's worked extremely hard, and still, today is a work in progress, trying to help as many people as I can, including, myself and my family.
Well, a lot of people may not know this, and a lot of people may know this, but you have somewhat of a military background.
Absolutely.
And when I say that, you attended the Citadel.
Absolutely.
Talk about, and bear with me because I'm going somewhere with this.
Okay.
Talk about your experience at the Citadel.
It was different. It was very formative. I was very fortunate to be there. I didn't appreciate it as much, then as I do now. But coming from Louisburg, I had a bit of a wild streak in me. Anybody out there listening that knows somebody from Louisburg, they know exactly what I mean. But coming from, St. David's, that kind of calmed me down a little bit, but I still kind of had that streak. And when I went to the Citadel, it focused me. There were a lot of things that I experienced there, that I witnessed there, that had an impact on me. Some things that I gravitated towards, like the discipline and, things of that nature, and some other things that weren't so cool with me. But those things that I experienced there that didn't quite jive with who I wanted to be, I was able to kind of distance myself from those things and move forward and apply those positive things towards my life.
Was there a reason why you chose to go there versus because I'm sure you had a lot of opportunities.
I had some opportunities. I think that was where I was supposed to be. I was in a position that another good friend of mine from Louisburg that was at my school, Jenkins Williamson, his mom was our guidance counselor and kind of helped me personally with all the stuff that was related to going to college. And out of the options that I had, I wasn't going to be an NBA player. I wasn't going to be an NFL player. I wasn't going to play Major League Baseball or anything like that. So I needed to make a decision that was going to help prepare me to be successful outside of sport. And the Citadel, I was fortunate enough to be able to play football down there, and it gave me an opportunity to really to kind of learn who Brian was and wanted to be as a man, and to kind of grow within that. And so it just made sense. I've never been, one into like drugs and alcohol and stuff like that, but I like to party with the best of them, and I just don't think and I knew in my heart that me leaving high school and going to a quote unquote regular school, that would have been a recipe for disaster. That absolutely wouldn't. It wouldn't have lasted a semester.
So prior to, and this could have been while you had D1 Sports. I remember you were in the banking industry, and we had a conversation, and you said that you felt like if you wanted to go after, chase your dreams, you had to leave banking and focus on D1 Sports full time.
Absolutely.
At what point did you realize that you had to do that when you were working in the banking industry?
I just saw everything. Shout out to my big brothers, uncles in this basketball game. Mitch Malone, Gary Charles, Wallace Prather, who's not here anymore. Our grandfather in this, Mac Irvin, the king himself, Sonny Vaccaro. I watched these guys going to get it, and their whole lives. Gary Charles was working on Wall Street at a bank, but I guarantee you, I think Bank of New York, if I'm not mistaken, at the time. But Gary the hours that he was putting into this were insane, and I knew that I was chasing those guys, and I had a tremendous amount that I had to do to catch up with them. If I was going to even try to catch up with them, I had a tremendous amount that I had to do, and I wasn't going to be able to stay in a 9-to-5 and make up the ground. I think I could have made just enough progress to be a day late and a dollar short. And I didn't want that. I knew that guys like yourself that were supporting me, Greg Molden and Cleveland Tubbs, Chuck Sykes, all the guys, my brother Dewan, Rodney Blackstock, all the guys that were out there. Kendrick Williams came later, Tony Edwards, Antoine Williams, Julio, all the guys who came to help me build what became D1 Sports. Like I owe those guys something more. Like with the conversations that we're having and what we're trying to build, it wasn't gonna be a thing that was gonna be successful in half measures. We had to really press the gas, and so I was in a situation, fortunately at the time, that my personal life allowed me to kind of step back and take a head first dive into that world. And again, like I said, the guys that were there for me, that supported me, and they gave me opportunity to kind of learn and understand what the business was and needed to be. Those guys were already in place and they were already doing it. So it was a easy enough transition for me to make if I was willing to do it.
So now comes D1 Sports. What was your vision behind D1 Sports? Because when I came on board in 2010, it was pretty much like the Beatles, if you will. What was your vision when you started D1 Sports?
Well, the biggest thing, and the name D1 Sports, I have a younger brother, Dewan Clifton. I named the organization after him. Me, just like any other kid that's ever played basketball, the ultimate, prize for you at the end of the day is to play Division I basketball. And my brother's name was Dewan. And
I never knew that.
And so I can remember sketching, an idea of, what I wanted to do and the things that I had learned and that I was learning and things that I just felt convicted about that needed to take place in order for a young man, an organization to meet with success. And I just tried to implement those things and put it together. I worked with I spent some time with Texas Blue Chip, my big brother Mitch, and looking at just his focus and his drive and how he was moving and the success that he was having. And with all those things, it just kind of gave me an opportunity to really, really, like I said earlier, just get a very clear picture of what was possible. And I was seeing these guys the Atlanta Celtics were cranking out All-Americans and pros left and right. And Wallace Prather was kind enough to let me come down and work their camps and, work their events and tag along behind them. And Chris Rivers was, put me in a situation that he was supporting my program product-wise initially, but then they actually wrote us a budget and Sonny and Pam, the stuff that they were that they made available to me in terms of me being able to come up to ABCD every day and work camp. So it's just a culmination of all of these things. And the late Mike Harris, who was a coach at the Central YMCA in Greensboro, North Carolina. I spent a lot of time there, and a lot of stuff that I was able to learn from Mike and Guy Shavers, another great friend of mine through this basketball thing that, those guys, I saw a lot. And so D1 Sports was just basically, it's kind of like a patchwork quilt of all the things that I've experienced over the years. Right. And I thought that, and I was crazy enough to, believe that it could work all together. So
right. So I came on board in 2010, and this is where the Citadel reference comes in terms of having that military background. From what I saw when I was with the program, the way you ran the program, it was sort of military style, because you strategically, everything was done strategically. You knew what you wanted. You held everyone accountable. It was you were very detailed in your approach. Did you pull from the Citadel when you were running your D1 Sports program?
I don't know if I had to so much pull from it as much as it was ingrained in me already. I knew the stuff that we were doing at the Citadel was real, because after my freshman year there, I went to Officer Candidate School for the United States Marine Corps in Quantico, Virginia. And basically that's a proving grounds for anyone who's going to become an officer in the Marine Corps. You have to go through that. Everyone that's ever received a commission as a United States Marine Corps officer has had to go to Officer Candidate School. I went through that, and a lot of stuff that I saw guys who came from regular schools, they struggled with. It was like second hat to me. It didn't affect me at all, because I've been submerged in living that lifestyle, and so I knew it was real. So to go on the other elements of my life, even to the day, I'm very particular about just do your job, and we don't have to have a lot of discussion. We don't have to have a tremendous relationship, but I'm going to count on you to do certain things. And if you do those things, it's going to allow me to do things that are going to bring benefit to you. And I'm always a team player. I've always been a hard worker. So my thing is, if we're going to do something, it's got to be a benefit in it for you just as much as me. And if I can't bring the benefit for you, regardless of how much it benefits me, you're not going to stay. And if I'm hindered in any way at bringing you the value that you need because of the actions that you take or the actions that you don't take, then we got to have a conversation about that. Yeah. And a lot of guys, I'm a man, and until you got to have a tough conversation, and until you have to hold people accountable. Most people don't want to do that, and it's I can see why our youth struggle with it, because we as men struggle with that. Yeah. So for you to have a conversation with someone and say, listen, this is what I need you to do, and this is why I need you to do it, and this is the benefit of you doing so. And then for there to be a breakdown in that, it's a very simple conversation. We got into this relationship, we got into this agreement, this partnership for certain things to happen. And now, because of what you're doing or not doing, you're jeopardizing that. That's it's a really easy conversation, and it doesn't matter that I like you or that I dislike you. It's just, it is what it is. And I think there's a safety, there's a stability, there's a strength that's ingrained in that philosophy that it makes it easy for people to be successful. And I feel like bigger than any basketball we ever taught at D1 Sports, because being a part of it yourself, it was never really about that with us. We weren't in the gym working kids out 24/7. We weren't practicing 15 days a week and 8 hours a day. It wasn't that. It was do your job. We brought you on this team because you can shoot. So when we throw you the ball, make shots. Right. We didn't bring you on the team for you to handle the ball, because when you handle the ball, bad things happen for you and everybody else. So don't handle it. Like it's not. And guys could come with us and they could find their comfort zone because you never really had to do anything other than what you were good at doing. And I felt good about that, and it's tried and true, and I think our track record speaks for itself. We had success with guys who, after they played with us, everybody was smart and everybody knew they were going to be this or be that. But while we were recruiting them and when we're bringing them in and bringing them into our system, there wasn't much buzz about them. But once they got in and they found that level of comfort, it got really easy for them to be successful. And as long as they stayed within that, we didn't have problems.
Right. That was good stuff, man. I noticed that, during that process, that you held people accountable. Things were done strategically. You had some heavy hitters, man. Most notable, Quincy Miller, John Wall, JT Terrell,
Ryan Kelly.
Yeah, Ryan Kelly.
Sam Montgomery. Sam Grooms.
Wow, you name it. Yeah, those were guys before me.
Yeah.
Starju Love.
Yep, absolutely.
Deuce Bello.
Yep.
The relationship.
Ike Wamu.
Yeah, Ike Wamu. Forgot about Ike. The relationship. How did the relationship with John Wall happen?
I first saw, and this is literally one of the first times that I've told this story publicly. People who know me know it, but I haven't really told this story in this format before. But in the earlier days of D1 Sports, when we had Marshall Moses, oh man, I can't believe I forgot Marshall and Eric. I talk to Marshall to this day. He's like a son to me. I was going through with those guys, and the Atlanta Celtics set their team up. They had Scenario Hillman and Cameron Hayward, who's playing in the NFL right now. They had a bunch of big-time guys. Dwayne Barnes, who had OJ Mayo and Bill Walker with the D1 Greyhounds at the time. I threw this really, really big event down in Greensboro, North Carolina. I was working at Western Guilford High School at the time. When we threw the event, it was primarily an 8th grade event, but I wanted some younger teams there also. And so a friend of mine was coaching for Garner Road at the time, Pierre Debenham, and he had a son on the team, and he had this other little kid with braids in his hair that was absolutely the fastest thing that I'd seen. He's flying up and down the court, a bit out of control. I could see that fire was in him, and that he probably had some issues. But I thought that he was doing something that you can't teach. So I would call Pierre from time to time. We kept in contact, and I'd check on the kid from that distance, from a distance for a while. But we really didn't have anything because we were just hitting the ground with Marshall and Eric Wallace and Sam and Sean Carter and all those guys. Chris Turner, who passed away some time ago, Daquan Joyner, all those guys that were really good players. We were just hitting the ground with them. And so as we started to move, and we brought Tony Edwards in. Tony he had a group of young kids with Melvin Tabb and Poobie Chapman, and I can't recall all the kids. We were really loaded. And anybody knows the story. We had a lot of kids that were really, really talented. But Tony came along and we crossed paths, and I liked the way he was moving and the things that he was able to do. So I knew that we wanted to grow, but like you said, I don't think I'm the easiest person to work with for a lot of people. But with Tony, the way that he was moving with his guys, the time that he had put into it, they just needed a little bit of support and some structure. So Greg had taken over kind of the control of D1 Sports at the time with, coaching the guys day to day, and I was able to kind of jump on his hip and get behind the scenes and make sure everybody else was moving. And as we started to move, it became apparent that we needed to grow from the bottom. So Tony brought his group in, and we had some conversations with John and his people, and he was at Garner Road, and it wasn't really working out for him over there. And no, people think and have thought over the years that there was this beef between us and Garner Road, and I'd like to go on record as saying that was never the case. Hank Maddox, who passed away, and Byron Solomon, and actually I don't know. Is Hank still around? I know Byron passed away, but these were the original guys that were running. Garner Road. Tremendous respect for those guys because they were doing things that like I didn't even think were possible for people who looked like me at the time. But they had John, and I just think they had so much size and so many moving parts that a kid like him was going to inevitably fall through the crack. We had some conversations, and my guys down in Raleigh on this end were able to link up and look out, and John and I think Poobie and JT Terrell and Melvin Tab, all those guys had relationships. They knew each other. And John was in a higher grade, but he was younger. He was as young as those guys. So once he got to, we got him in the program. We brought him in, and I was able to kind of put my hands on him at that time, probably around 9th or 10th grade. We were able to put our hands on him, and I pulled him to the side and said, listen, man, you got a tremendous opportunity. Like, I can remember coming to Raleigh, and we'd ride around town and just talk about life and what basketball could be for him and how it could impact his life if he used it constructively. And some of the things that we talked about obviously resonated with him, and as a result, he came into the program, and it wasn't. If we're being honest, initially I didn't know if it was going to work because John was a wild dude, and if you talk to him, if you talk to people around him, he was a wild dude, and at that point he hadn't really had a male figure who stayed the course with him, and that he felt like wasn't gonna leave him, and because I was able to step into that void. The confidence in his mom, rest her soul, she just passed away. She was able to give me her confidence, and she was John's world. So for her to say, I trust this guy, it meant something to him. And the fact that they were able to they stamped me together, it made it insulated us from a lot of the stuff for a while anyway that would come as a result of his ascension into becoming, John Wall.
Right, who he is today.
Absolutely.
Did you have any problems? When John, of course, when he came on board, he was killing it. And D1 Sports have had a lot of great players. Did you get any sense of jealousy from some of the other guys?
No. What was crazy, one of the issues that we had, and this scenario has played itself out a couple of different times over my career, especially as it related to John. One of the conversations were when we went our separate ways professionally, people were trying to insinuate that it had something to do with money. The whole time that John and I were together, the only conversation, the only issue we ever had on money was he wanted to buy the kids. We signed an incredible deal with Reebok after John went to the league. After his deal was already done, we signed our own individual deal for D1 Sports to stay with Reebok, and they sent us a ton of stuff. And as a result, the kids really had more gear than they knew what to do with. So we're in Vegas, working out at Impact. Shout out to my boy Joe Bonasara out at Impact Basketball.
Yep.
Joe had us out, and we're working out and training there. John was training as a professional too, and he wanted to get the guys some gear. We had just gotten gear before we got on the plane. We had boxes of shoes waiting for us in the hotel room. They had just gotten there, and Jay wanted to he wanted to buy them more gear. And I said, dude, that doesn't make any, they don't need anything. Like, you've done enough for us already. That, like, you don't need to do anything. And he really wanted to give back to the guys. And as a result, we had some words because he felt like he wanted to give more. And I already thought he had given enough. So we had an issue over that. And then your question was,
in terms of the other players feeling some type of way about John getting all the notoriety.
Exactly. What I was making with that is this: people would have thought that was an issue with us, but the only issue that we ever really had was that Marshall Moses and Sam and some of those guys, we were up at 5-Star in Kansas City. And my boy Harold Johnson had reached out to us on behalf of Howard Garfinkel and 5-star, my boy Tony Bergeron up at UMass. They had reached out to us and asked us to come to camp. So we brought the whole D1 Sports clan up to 5-star. John came up and was playing really well. So I'm going through the dorms one night, and Marshall pulls me in the room and says, "Hey, B, can we talk to you?" So, you know, what's up? He said, "Hey, the young boy." I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, the young boy, Jay, we need to move him up." I said, "Sam's our point guard. We're like Sam's." I think they were going into their senior year.
Mm-hmm.
So what are you talking about? Like, he's fine where he is. He's with Melvin. Those are the next guys. I'm not going to pull him off of that team because he and Poobie were playing together. So I'm not going to pull him off that team to bring him up with y'all. And plus that, I don't mm-hmm. think it's a good fit. They were like, "No, B, he's ready." And I said, we're not going to do that. And we almost had a mutiny. Mm-hmm. Because those guys wanted so desperately to bring John up to play with them, but the timing wasn't right.
Right. So take me to, okay, John's the number 1 pick out of Kentucky. That's when you transition to the management side of things. Can you briefly talk about that process in terms of when he got drafted, and then, you know, you're dealing with the business side of things with John Wall?
Well, I didn't ever not deal with the business side of it. Because mm-hmm. again, the guys that had raised me in this business, they made it very clear to me right away that it was always about business.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't anything different, but we went through all types of, you know, stuff that people won't know about when we're looking to, when a lot of people don't know, but the EYBL that's so, held in such high esteem right now. When they first started, the first year that they did that, D1 Sports was a part of that. Okay. And we had been with, you know, Sonny. I was one of Sonny's guys, and so our whole beginning was at Adidas. And after Sonny left Adidas, Rivers and my boy Pat Coombs left to go to Reebok. That's when we transitioned over to Reebok. So that was kind of a business decision then too. Rivers was, when I got married, Chris Rivers was in my wedding. Like that's my guy. Like,
yeah, shout out to Chris Rivers.
Rivers was my guy. And so we had a conversation because the guys from Nike were sniffing around us. There was a program at the time called South Carolina Ravens. My boy Dion Bethay, who's at Great Collegiate now doing great things, back-to-back state champion, just turning the high school world upside down in the state of South Carolina. He started and was running the Ravens. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of a down year for them. So if people go back and look at the highlights, we took our team, with me and my brother coaching, we took our team and went from being a Reebok team to being a Nike team. We played in the Peach Jam under the Carolina Ravens. Mm-hmm. That was still a business decision. And it was a business decision predicated on the fact that we thought it was inevitable that John was going to be a pro, and not just a pro, but the highest level pro. And that somewhere down the line, it was going to be necessary for us to have a relationship with the people over at Nike. They just do too much business. And so we made sure that we aligned ourselves with them. We played nice with them. They made some concessions for us. And then after we did what we needed to do at Peach Jam under the Ravens, the next year is when you saw Quincy and Deuce and right. all those guys come out. And D1 Sports was on the EYBL, and we were the
Beatles
team. Exactly.
the
Beatles. That time, like John was the catalyst for all that business being done.
Right.
We worked hard and we had some really, really good players, but there's absolutely no way we'd have been in the position that we were in that fast had it not been for the perceived talent and potential of John. And so it was never anything but business.
And that takes me to my next question, Brian, because, you know, that whole situation with John, you know, D1 Sports was pretty much major, mm-hmm. a major player in the game. The pressure, you have your other players. I can do what John did. I mean, how did you handle that situation? Because I was there, you know, I know for a fact that there were some other players mm-hmm. who felt like, hey, I'm next.
Yep.
How did you handle that?
I think it just goes with your core values and what you're built on. I was always, people often don't like what I have to say. It's very seldom that when they think about it and they take the emotions out of it, that they figure that I was wrong. And it's not that I'm some know-it-all that's infallible. That's not, but I'm very careful to understand exactly what I'm trying to do, why I'm trying to do it, how I need to do it, and look at the consequences and the repercussions of the decisions that I make. So when I jump out there and I say this is what it is, or this is what, I've already taken the emotion out of it and stripped it down to its barest parts and the ability to make a decision that just makes sense. And I handle my guys that way. I always have and I always will. And so when we absolutely had guys that they were of the mindset that I could be John, but the thing that they felt overlooked was that 2 or 3 game stretch when we're playing in the back gym and when you didn't think anybody was looking and you it really didn't matter to you, you decided to go on vacation. Jay was still here.
Right.
When the lights got bright and it was 15, 20 college coaches sitting front row and you swallowed your tongue, Jay was here. And it wasn't that he played great, because he still had a tremendous amount that he needed to improve on skill-wise. But he was always him. And the rest of those guys, they may have had greater skill, greater potential as like from the technical aspect of the game. But the thing that has carried that young man all the way through this process is that thing that beats in his chest. Jay he's a different dude. And I hear all the time and I laugh because people, he's faster than John, and he does this better than John, he's that better than John. I'm like, you guys haven't, you really shouldn't put that dude's name on any other kid.
Right.
And I watched them do that to the young dude, Rodney Purvis. I absolutely believe to this day, and I'm not afraid to say it, that as much as John helped us and the guys who came behind him in D1 sports, I think it hurt that way. Yeah. Because the perception was, he's the next John Wall. And Rodney, if we're telling the truth, as a scorer, as a basketball player, probably better than John. But that was never what Jay was. It was never what he was. And the reason that he had the place that he had within our organization and within the stuff that we were doing was because he was rock solid, not perfect by any stretch. I won't tell stories on air, but we had some really interesting situations that people on the outside looking in would have thought that there's no way he's going to stay with them. But I think Jake knew deep down that regardless of what he was hearing or how he was feeling, he felt like this was the only path for him to go. So we never lost him to anybody else.
Right.
And him being in a situation that the rest of those guys, they wanted to have the success that John had, but the sacrifice that they saw him make, I think those guys kept each other in check and kept themselves in check more than I ever could, because they knew your mama was telling you, if it was this, you could be doing John and you should be doing that. And everybody said that. But when those kids got home and they sat down and the quiet set in and they realized exactly what that dude was going through and how many times they saw him pull his cape out and be exactly who he was supposed to be, nobody wanted that.
Right. So around that time, you were pretty much, on everybody's tongue. You were pretty much the cat's meow. Everybody wanted a piece of Brian Clifton. The negative press started coming. Yep. NCAA violations, issues with money. How did those allegations or rumors affect you, or did they affect you?
They didn't. They didn't shake me, because I knew the idea from the very beginning was, such and such. They don't deal with Brian. They don't deal with Brian. But the people who were at the highest level of this business that we needed to get next to, I never had issues with those people. Now I had people that were peons in this thing, and that guys who were running around fronting like they were this or fronting like they were, those guys had a problem with me. But the dudes who really, really were making decisions in this basketball world, I could get wherever I wanted to go. And it wasn't a matter of opinion, it's a matter of fact, because we got wherever we needed to go. It didn't matter. I saw it as exactly what it was. The NCAA stuff, again, this is something that I've spoken about publicly. When we first, after we really hit our stride with D1 and I felt like, okay, it's going to happen, I elected to step out of dealing with D1 sports stuff day to day, and I was going to turn the program over to another coach. The thing that I was watching from the very beginning was we were going out and we were getting these guys and cultivating these great relationships with them and their parents. We were positioning them to be successful, and they were going off to college. And then I knew the other side of this agent thing, which you're familiar with now more so than anybody. And that was, these guys get recruited out of college and they get sold a bill of goods. Oh, we're gonna bring you here, we're gonna train you, and you ain't gotta pay it back, and we're gonna get you a job, and you're gonna do, and so they'll do that to sign the guys. And then when they sign them and the phone doesn't ring and they come to the realization that they actually have to work for these guys, then the phone stops ringing. So now you signed with an agent and you're sitting back with your feet up thinking that this guy's going to help you get your career started, and it doesn't happen. Right. And so these guys are brokenhearted and they're sitting around and they don't have, the means to continue their career and do the things that I got tired of seeing guys who look like me and guys that I knew of and I was close to do that. So I had some conversations with a couple people around me, consulted Sonny, I talked to Chris, I talked to a couple other guys, and they told me, Brian, won't you do it? So I decided I reached out to the people at FIBA and Zoran Radovic, who's the head of all FIBA agents. Zoran and I had a phone conversation, and I packed my stuff up and flew over to Switzerland and studied and interviewed and took the test and got my agent certification and was able to make some connections while I was over in Switzerland. I came back here, and again, Chris Rivers saved the day for me, and he put me in a position that I was able to go to I guess I'm not sure where it was, Adidas or Reebok Euro Camp at the time. Now it's basically like the de facto Chicago version. Yeah. It's down in Treviso, Italy. I was able to go to that and make some more connections and stuff, and so I felt like I was on my way. Once I got there, I went on another 2-week tour just all over Italy to shake hands and to kind of establish myself. And the people who were behind me were kind of pushing me as, this is an up and coming dude that we're going to support, that we're behind. I got a phone call from one of my guys here that said, "Hey man, you need to get home." And about 2 weeks into my trip, I'm like, "What are you talking about?" I said, D1 sports is not going right. So I'm thinking, people all the time, "Oh, it's not." Yeah. What happened? And I won't, call specific names because I don't think that's necessary. But there was a movement to take the players, John, Ryan Kelly, JT, Melvin, CJ Leslie, all those guys out of my organization and start another organization. I felt a bit betrayed by that, but the issue was I understood because what we were doing was really, really attractive. Now, back in these times, as you understand, we're in a position that, like, right now, everybody in North Carolina is sponsored by somebody. Yeah. Back then, if you were saying that you were sponsored by a sneaker company, you were lying. Mm-hmm. You just weren't. No one was getting the support, especially the support that we were getting. Right. But so the level of attraction to somebody feeling like, hey, if we leave and start our own organization, we can take the stuff that has been reserved for D1 sports and we can get it for ourselves and then control where it goes. That was very tempting. And so because that happened, I sat down. I'll never forget. I was playing spades. We were in Demici, Italy. Myself and Chris Rivers and Dwayne Barnes and one of Dwayne's assistants. And I got the phone call. I got up from the table and I got the information that I needed. And when I came back, Rivers could see that I was upset. So he said, "What's going on?" I said, "Man, I got to get home." And we were about at the end of our trip, so we made some final adjustments and packed up and came back here. And when that happened, I grabbed John and grabbed JT, and the story that everybody knows about him, the summer that he blew up, this was that summer. Okay. On my en route, I called Zoran and told him, "Listen, man, my organization is falling apart," because he knew we had a personal relationship by then. So he knew everything that was going on with me. So when I called him, I didn't have to explain it to him. So I let him know that this is what's going on. If I don't step out of this, I can't do both things. I can't be an agent and run my club.
Right.
But if I don't run my club, it'll be pointless for me to be an agent because that's not what I'm really in it for anyway. Mm-hmm. So he decided that, okay, well, Brian, we'll terminate your license. And so I came back and just put my head down, grabbed JT, grabbed John, drove from, I just flown in, got off a plane, grabbed my car, got those guys, drove to Chicago, took them to the camp and the Reebok underclass camp. Jay tore it up. JT played really well too. Melvin ended up not showing, and CJ got an opportunity to go straight through to the Reebok All-American camp. We killed that camp, and that was kind of the momentum was starting to build, and that's probably the most real that it was for me. That, okay, this thing that we've been talking about is really about to happen.
Right.
And so after we got back and got everybody situated, we killed the camp, took Jay to the Reebok All-American camp. That's where he really, really blew up. That summer, he became John Walt, the national name. But during that time, I had spoken to Zoran and told him that I no longer had the desire to be an agent. That I had, for all intents and purposes, had decertified. But it's kind of like it was a technicality that I got on. And my point with all this is the NCAA violation that people said. What the issue was when Jay started becoming Jay, everybody around wanted to get next to him. And at that time, that wasn't possible without going through me. Well, the problem that people had going through me is I wasn't just this young black kid from North Carolina who didn't know anything or who was out here on a money grab or who was just ignorant because I was leading too much with my heart and not with because I had the giants of this industry that I was standing on their shoulders and they would tell me, yeah, don't do that. Do this, go there. So people couldn't take shots at me. And that made a lot of people frustrated. So there started to become this, okay, well, what's this guy in it for? Who is this Brian Clifton? Because we can't get to John. We can't access him even when we go to him. Even when we go to the mom, we're always routed back to this dude. And we've offered this dude money. We've offered him positions. We've offered him all this stuff. And we can't get him to do anything other than what's in the best interest of the kid. We got to get rid of him. And so that's when all the negativity started coming, not because I was doing anything wrong, but because the perception was I didn't have a price tag. Okay. And a lot of people who don't know that world, they'll, oh, well, that's, that's a real thing. The article started to come out, and when one of them did, the conversation was, oh, well, this guy's an agent. Because when you went to the FIBA website, they had taken some pictures. And again, Zoran, they really did take care of me. And when on the website, if you went years ago, they were showing guys in the class studying for the test and for taking the test. Yeah. One of the pictures was a picture of me. Wow. And so when that came out, articles started to come out that I was trying to take this kid and pull him out of college and send him to Europe so I could get paid. So the Carolina not being able to recruit him, other coaches sending their cronies in to try to sway the kid. None of that stuff was able to work. And this was the reason why people were comfortable with that. They weren't doing enough for me because I was trying to take the kid and go to Europe. The crazy part about it is the same exact people who wrote articles about that after the fact, when people really saw who John was and what he was going to do, those same people wrote articles saying how I was now trying to push him to college because it was something for me when he really should be going to the pros. Wow. And that's why literally at that point I said, you know what? You can't win. In this, you can't win. So all you have to do at the end of the day is do what's right by the kid. Do the best thing that you can for yourself, for your organization, for your family, and let everybody say what they say. And that's another thing about me that makes people very uncomfortable. Like what you say about me doesn't really affect me. I know who I am. I know what I am and what I plan and what I want to be. So your interpretation or your perception of it doesn't matter. And it's not that I think I'm better than anybody. I cool because I know that the pendulum swings both ways. So everything that makes me a pariah today, tomorrow it'll make me the toast of the world. So I never worried about that.
Now you've since severed ties. You and John have severed ties in terms of business. Do you think the negative press that you received early on kind of contributed to?
Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Because Jay's he was a kid at that time. But one thing that I do know about him is he's a very, very prideful young man. Mm-hmm. And I'm sorry and my bad and stuff like that. That ain't real easy for him.
Right.
And so as a result, I think Jay probably took on a position, and I think people miss the when your potential is as immense as his was, it makes it you live in a different world. And I was able to see, since Jay and I going our separate ways, that was one of the best things that could have happened for other people around this area, to see me and him go our separate ways, because they were never able to do that. Mm-hmm. They were never able to take a guy from such a young age and guide and shepherd him all the way through the process, have him succeed at the highest level and still be relevant and a part of it. And with Jay, what was different was I did his business. Mm-hmm. I wasn't just an AAU coach. Right. I wasn't just a hanger-on. Like, I was out moving and shaking and making major multi-million-dollar deals because of him and with him and for him. And so that made people really, really uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. And so for us to go our separate ways, and that was probably the biggest thing with me. I was okay with the business part of us not being connected anymore, but the other things that came as a result, we got to the point that we weren't talking like on a personal level anymore, and that impacted me way more than the business part. I told Jay from the beginning, I was driving a Benz when I met Jay. Mm-hmm. I was. And that part, I was going to make it because I was determined to do so. Mm-hmm. Whatever make it was to me, I was going to do that. Mm-hmm. He helped kind of ramp that up and get us there at an accelerated pace, but we was going one way or the other. And so, but for him to be in that world, being a 19-year-old kid with the entire world at your fingertips, when 3 or 4 years ago, you didn't even know if you were going to go to school. It's the same kid, Gail, mm-hmm. who got cut from Broughton High School. Brock Young went on to have a tremendous career at East Carolina, but that was Jay's idol at one point.
Wow.
And so for you now to look back and people are putting you on commercials, man, we flew to France and we shot this thing in this museum that you literally cannot get into. And before us, no one had ever shot anything there, because Reebok paid so much money that they brought us in. They brought Swiss Beats in, and we shot a John Wall commercial in Paris, France. This kid's 19 years old, man. Mm-hmm. From 537 East Davie Street. And now that's your world. I can't hold any resentment towards Jay for the way things went down. Don't get me wrong. I would have preferred that they not had gone down that way. But I don't have any resentment to this man, because I know the world that he was living in. And then being on the backside of that, I've seen guys who were somebody's guy turn their back on guys that had done mm-hmm. great things for them and had helped them and so for a lot less. And so, with that, but that absolutely, it did facilitate the kind of the animosity, the angst, the tension that existed between Jay and I, that caused the end to our professional relationship and probably to our personal relationship.
And the one thing that I can say that I do admire about you is you kept grinding. Sure. you kept, you had your management company and you were managing other athletes. You didn't let that one situation kill your spirits. So that's one thing that I definitely admire about you. Fast forward to today, man, coaching. Yeah. You got into coaching, man. Why coaching?
After Jay and I went our separate ways, I decided that I was out of basketball. I was cool. Everything that people might not understand now. If you look at Bleacher Report, they did a thing some years back, said the top 50 most influential people in the history of college basketball, and I was on that list, and I wasn't 50. That's a lot of people listening to this. They won't ever know that because it's not something that I walk on. Especially today's time when you get these dudes on Instagram.
Yeah, I didn't know
Twitter,
that.
Yeah, because it's not something. But Google it when we get off. You can pull it up. I was done, man. I felt like I had everything that I came in and that I could hope to be able to pay back to the game for the guys that had given me so much. I'd done that. We had success as a club team. We had success on coaching. We went out to the Adidas Big Time, the Super 64, and we won the gold bracket. I forget the name of the Super Cup that they had. It's like a tournament within a tournament, but they put all the top teams in it. We won that. I felt like I had done everything that I needed to do. We made a splash on draft night. I gotten hired by a startup company out of LA to come and run their entire marketing division for the agency, and everything that I felt like I needed to prove was done. And then to be real, the situation went with Jay and I, that was heartbreaking because it didn't have to go that way.
Exactly.
But when it did, I was like, you know what? If that ain't enough for them, forget it.
Right. So
I went back home. I told you I'm a country boy. I love motorcycles. I started a motocross company, a motocross team, not a company. I wish I'd had the bread to start the whole company, but I started a team, and it was like D1 Sports. It's called Black Ops Racing. It was basically the motocross version of D1 Sports. I had some really good riders, and I bought a truck, a couple trucks and trailers, and a trailer full of bikes, and we toured the entire country, and I just got away from basketball. And you can't really get much more removed from basketball than motocross because there's no gyms. It's completely outside. Like it's fresh air. It's dirt. There's none of the pretense. You're not walking out to the track with your Gucci loafers on, and like nobody cares about that. People wear Lee jeans and dirty tennis shoes and boots, and you're out there in all the elements. And that was so therapeutic for me in the space that I was in. But I have another close friend here, Brian Dawson, on 97.5, and he had a little son named Chase, and Brian was sending me videos. Hey man, check me. I was like, B, I'm not in that world. I'm not doing that. He's like, oh man, check him out. Yeah. So he finally got me to come, and I started working out Chase for a little bit. And then before I know it, at the end of our workouts, other kids were showing up. I would work them out prior to their AAU practice, and other kids started to come, and I was like, all right, when they cool, they good with you, B, they good with me. So I started working those guys out, and then I started working with the team itself on their offensive and defensive philosophy. Before you knew it, I was back coaching
back in it.
And I told myself I wasn't gonna take the plunge, but then I got an opportunity briefly over at Mount Zion. I was already in Durham anyway, and some things fell into place. And before you knew it, I was over there coaching, and kind of the rest is history. I left there after a while and ended up at Word of God, and haven't been able to shake it.
Now, did you take any, all the things that you've learned over the years? Did you take some of that into coaching?
Absolutely, every bit of it, because I think it wasn't all positive. My life in basketball, but even the negative part, I always felt could be used as a positive. And so for me to neglect any part or whole of that, it would have been disrespectful for one, to the people who sacrificed enough to give me the examples and give me the information, and then to myself and who I stand for, to try to act like it was all good and that I needed to gloss over things. I've always just been, this is who I am. It has affected, it's had a significant effect on my coaching style, my level of tolerance and acceptance of that's how things are now, or that's how these young kids are. I don't believe in that. And a lot of the things that our young players are allowed to do and push towards, it's people who they're hoping that, I tell you, I kind of feel like when I watch some of these guys, it's kind of the people that are their coaches, their handlers, even their parents, are kind of like used car salesmen. you got a car on the lot and you know that it's not as solid as the person that's buying it needs it to be. Mm-hmm. So you talk about all the fine points of the car. You shine it up really nice, and on the surface it looks like, oh, it's great. Now you move it out from one spot to the next because it's a big puddle of oil on it.
Yeah.
Like that, you won't talk about that, and if anybody does, then it makes you uncomfortable because you gonna blow my sale. Mm-hmm. I think that's how our kids are being raised these days. Right. Parents know that they're not the kids aren't who they're supposed to be, but when you point out things, they don't feel that they're either able or willing to fix those things because it's going to take them off the perceived path of success that they're on. And what they don't know is that, like, you can't be successful anyway. You sell that car with a hole in the transmission, somebody might buy it and you're going to put some money in your pocket on that day. But no sooner than they get to the stoplight, they're going to turn around and come back, and now you're going to have a problem. Mm-hmm. But people don't care about that. They just want to get you out of here. And so I'm not the one for that. Mm-hmm. If something is coming out of me, if it's coming out of my camp, it's going to be certified. It's going to be whatever it's supposed to be. And when you put pressure to it and you put it on in situations, it's going to be everything that it's supposed to be and probably more. But so people are so eager, so thirsty, so hungry now for just a bite at the apple that they're very uncomfortable with you being honest about their kid, mm-hmm. whether it's a player, or parent, or coach.
Right. Last few points, man, I want to touch on. D1 Sports 2020.
Let's do it. Yeah, I got my son's 9, Brody. Uh-huh. Shout out to him. He's not a very good basketball player right now. So I'm not going to be one of these dads that's on the sideline thinking that I'm raising the next LeBron James. I tell him almost every day that I'm passionate about basketball the way that I am because it allows me to teach a lifetime of lessons and a lifetime of experiences and have him make mistakes and have successes that don't impact him very much once the buzzer goes off. Mm-hmm. Like that's the most magical thing about basketball for me. And so for him to have the opportunity, this D1 Sports was my program. I had a lot of help building it, but it started with me. And so for him to be able to experience a part of what I hope would be, if not a legacy, a significant part in the culture of basketball in North Carolina, I want to do that for him. Mm-hmm. And so I'm going to take him and a handful of other guys, and I'm going to coach them hard, and we're going to learn basketball, and we're going to learn life, and we're going to continue to grow. And if that turns into D1 Sports 2.0, and we got another John Wall, another JT, another Quincy, then we'll be equipped for that. But if all it becomes is just another opportunity, a vehicle for whether it's players or coaches to experience the game of basketball at the highest level and get an opportunity to be able to participate in that without all the stress and the drama that comes with playing daddy ball and having to whore yourself out to sneaker companies or can't go here, can't do that because I want to be able to do that part all over again. Mm-hmm. The money was good, and with what I'm very grateful for the opportunity that we're able to establish from a business standpoint with D1 Sports. A lot of guys' lives are better because of their affiliation with D1 Sports, and exactly part of the whole, that's real. And so for us to be able to go back and relaunch that thing and take our pluses and our minuses and use them to solidify ourselves again, I'm kind of up for that.
Okay. While I got you here, man, are there any rumors or anything out there about you that you would like to dispel?
I don't give a shit.
Hey, there you have it. Say no more.
I really don't. Because people will say anything that they feel like can get a rise out of you or can diminish you in any way, they're going to do that. Right. And I kind of, to speak on that though, the most frustrating thing is if there's ever been anybody around me, I'll help you whether you rock with me or not. Mm-hmm. And it's not because you tell me I'm the best thing ever. You got a whole bunch of people hit my phone all the time that I have no relationship with. that I know, especially now with social media, because you can get straight through to people. I answer questions, I give people advice and not unsolicited advice other than on my Twitter account. But I'll help people as often as I can. And so the whole idea that I'm this person that people want me to be, that they need me to be to justify, you know, some of the things that they say about me and some of the things that they've tried to do to me. I know it's not about me. It's not about me at all. If you identify somebody as a good dude, you feel bad about doing bad things to them.
Right.
Even if those doing bad things to them help you, I think most people are good enough people that they feel bad about that. But if you can convince yourself that this person is less than for whatever reason, it might be some one-off rumor that you heard, it might have a feeling, it might have something to do with a feeling that you have with your own personal insecurities. If you can convince yourself that that person is somewhat less than because of that, then it justifies all the vile stuff that you could potentially do and say to a person. So when people who've never met me, who don't know me at all, have negative things to say about me, like that's why it doesn't affect me, because I know like that person's they're hurt, they're struggling, they're in trouble, they're frustrated, they're disappointed, they're insecure, and so the easiest thing for them to do is to take a shot at me, and they can't take that shot unless they make me something that I'm not. And that's where that stuff comes from. So I see it as that, and I just keep rocking.
All right, last thing, man. I don't know if you've been watching the show, man, but at the end of the show, I have a segment called Free Game.
Yeah.
If you pretty much already know what it is, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Just give the people some free game, man. Again, it does not have to be about sports. It does not have to be about basketball. Just give, especially for the kids, free game.
I think everything that we encounter, everything that we're part of in life is or should be connected to sports. One of the things that I tell my guys, and I'll tell the parents of the kids that I'm fortunate enough to be able to work with, is that I want people around me who want to be professional. That's it. It takes the exact same thing to be a doctor, a lawyer, secretary of the state, governor, oral surgeon, as it takes to be a Carolina Mudcat, a Charlotte Hornet, a Carolina Panther. There's no difference. If you're operating in any sport at the professional level, if you're at the top of your game, it takes the exact same thing that it takes to be a judge. There's no difference. And so for people to be professional in their approach, in their preparation, in their understanding, in their passion, you got to do that. And it doesn't matter what you're preparing for. And like I said with my son in basketball, it's not about him being a basketball player. But if we can take those opportunities through basketball and guide him towards things that are right and that are firm and that are consistent, then he's going to meet with success. And that's anybody listening. That's what I would tell him. The moves that we make, how we carry ourselves, the things that I'm about as a person, as an individual, as a coach, whatever. Like it all comes from the same place. And my thing is, if you're going to put the time into it, then you might as well get something out of it. And if you can maximize your ability to get something out of it by carrying yourself with a level of decorum and understanding and pride and preparation, then why not do that? So I think that's what I would leave people with. Just whatever you're going to try to do, if you're passionate enough about it to do it, then do it to the best of your ability. Focus on that.
There you have it. Louisburg's own.
For sure, Louisburg.
Brian Clifton on Sports Talk with Player Agent 3.